Okay, hi there, and welcome to one of our series of Edge in A-Level Economics videos. In this one, we're going to be taking a revision blast. That means we're going to be looking at 5 multiple choice questions covering aspects of market failure and government intervention in markets. And this is a chance for you to test your understanding, test your knowledge ahead of the exam. At various points during the video, we'll request that you press the pause button, have a go at a question, then we come back to you with the right answer and have a chance to go through the reasoning and the explanation. So this is a great chance over the next 15 minutes or so to test your understanding of 10 questions covering market failure and intervention. We'll cover 10 selected questions. Obviously, it's a big part of the syllabus, so we have to be quite selective. If you're taking the webinar, you can type the answer into the chat window and keep your own score. But obviously, if you're looking at this on YouTube, then you'll just have to keep your own score without typing into the chat window. If you're ready, let's go to the first of our 10 questions, and here it comes. One reason why the free market fails to achieve an optimal allocation of scarce resources is because. Have a go, press the pause button, have a go at the answer. When you're ready, press play, and I'll come back to you with the correct answer. And the correct answer to question 1. One reason why the free market fails to achieve an optimal allocation of scarce resources is, the answer is C. There is underproduction, underutilization of goods with positive externalities. Public goods are not necessarily provided free of charge to users. Positive externalities tend to lead to underconsumption of a good, and individuals' incomes and wealth are not identical. That's not necessarily a cause of market failure, non-optimization. The answer is C. Positive externalities leads to underconsumption. Here's a quick diagram to reinforce this idea. With positive externalities, the marginal social benefit lies above the marginal private benefit, and therefore the social optimum output is Q2, where we focus on social benefits, whereas the market equilibrium, the private optimum, is output Q1. And if you underconsume, underprovide a good with a positive externality, there's a social welfare loss, shown in this diagram by the shaded green area. So to answer the first question was C. Here's our second question. Which policy is most likely to both increase productivity and improve equity? Which policy is most likely to both increase productivity and improve equity? Press the pause button. So what did you think for question 2? The correct answer to this question is D, healthcare. Healthcare is generally regarded as a merit good, a product for which value judgments are involved, but a product for which there are positive external benefits. And if you provide healthcare free at the point of need, which is pretty much the case for most treatments, for example, within the National Health Service, providing free at the point of need rather than ability to pay, then that is more equitable. It makes healthcare more accessible, obviously affordable. And if you have an efficient, effective healthcare system, then that surely must improve the overall productivity of the economy. If people's healthcare improves, output per worker should be higher in the long run. So healthcare is the right answer to this question. A switch from taxation from income to expenditure is just a change in the balance of tax. Many people argue actually that reduces equity, since many indirect taxes tend to be regressive on low income households. The introduction of minimum prices on foodstuffs could actually again hit people, families and households with tight budgets. Privatisation, well, it might improve productivity if you shift to the private sector, but again, the likelihood is that prices would go up. The transport system would be less heavily subsidised, for example, and that would not necessarily improve equity. So the answer to question 2 is D. Let's take a swing to question 3. At major sporting events, unofficial markets occur where tickets originally sold by the event organiser are resold at prices higher than the original ticket price. What might be the conclusion of an economist when considering these markets? Have a go, press the pause button. I'll come back to you in a few seconds with the right answer. So what do you think for this question? What might be the conclusion of an economist considering these markets? We think the correct answer to this question is C, the reselling of prices higher than the original price. better reflects consumers' utility. So things like secondary markets, if you've artificially kept the price of a ticket low, for example, lower than the market would normally pay, then you're going to create a shortage of tickets. There's going to be an excess demand for tickets. Touting obviously is a form of secondary ticketing. So the reselling at prices higher is going to better reflect utility, because those people who are really desperate to go to the concert, really keen to see their favourite band or artist play, for example, or go to a major sporting event where their team is playing, perhaps a final, they'll be willing to pay more. They have a higher willingness to pay, perhaps a more inelastic demand, and therefore if you resell, the allocation of tickets will better reflect the consumer's marginal utility from going to that event. So the answer is C. Question 4. In which situation will it be necessary to use an alternative to the price mechanism to allocate a good between consumers? When will it be necessary to use an alternative to the price mechanism to allocate a good between consumers? Have a go, press the pause button. We'll be back in a few seconds with the answer. Okay, question 4. What do we think? Correct answer to this question is B. So you'll need to use an alternative if you set a price ceiling, a maximum price, below the equilibrium price. If supply exceeds quantity demand at the initial market price, that's not going to necessarily be a big problem. You've got an excess supply, so you can just reallocate the surplus and the price will fall anyway. The crucial point is B, setting a price ceiling below the equilibrium. It's to do with the maximum price. And crucially, if you set a maximum price below the equilibrium, then you're going to create excess demand, you're going to create a shortage, and therefore at some point you're going to have to ration the good, perhaps by need, first come first served, or some other rationing mechanism to get rid of the shortage in the market. So the answer is B. Question 5. A specific tax is placed on the sale of bottles of lemonade. Initial diagram, SS is the supply curve before the imposition of the tax. STST is the supply curve after the tax. And the question 5 is which distance represents the specific tax on each bottle? Have a go. And the correct answer to question 5 is A, distance WT. Key revision point here, everybody, is that if you put a specific tax, it's obviously a parallel shift in the supply curve, and the amount of the tax is always shown by the vertical distance between the two supply curves. So the tax has increased the cost of the business by WT, that is the tax. The consumer, well, they'll face a higher price that goes up by WU, so the producer is able to pass on WU to the consumer. In this case, the producer would have to absorb vertical distance UT. In other words, they haven't been able to pass on the full amount of the tax to the consumer, in part because demand is relatively elastic in our example. But WT is the specific tax on each bottle. It's the vertical distance between the two supply curves. Halfway, hope you're doing well. 5 to go. Let's push on to question 6. Table below, or in the top corner of your screen, I think. Table shows the private and external costs for 4 products, A, B, C and D. Which product, A, B, C or D, has a market price which takes least account of negative externalities? Press the pause button, have a think through the question, get your answer ready and come back to us in a few seconds. So, which of these 4 products, A, B, C or D, has a market price which at the moment takes least account of negative externalities? For all of these products, there is an external cost per unit, some sort of third-party negative spillover cost, which means that the social cost, of course, lies above the private cost. So which product takes least account? The correct answer is D. Correct answer is D. If you add together the private and the external cost, that comes to 30, and that's £6 higher than the market price. A, the market price is 12 and the external cost, the social cost is 12. B, the market price is 15. Actually, the social cost is 17, so there's a £2 difference. And with C, the market price is 22, the social cost is 23, so there's a £1 difference. D, market price is 24, but the social cost is 30, so there's a £6 difference. So D takes least account of the negative externalities. Now, crucially, from a point of view of revision, can you visualize a diagram that might go with this kind of question? Here it is. With a negative externality from production, the marginal social cost lies above the marginal private cost. And that, of course, can lead to market failure. The key question is whether the price takes this into account. For example, a pollution tax, some sort of carbon tax, or some sort of carbon trading scheme, for example, which might at least help to internalise some of the external costs of production. Question 7. The table below, or again, the table on the right-hand side of your screen, shows possible sources of market failure in current UK markets. Which combination of example and policy, A, B, C or D, is consistent with the possible source, the cause of market failure identified? Take a few moments, press the pause button, take a few moments to answer the question and come back to me when you're ready. So this table shows a source example policy. Source example policy. Actually, it's a really good revision exercise to do that for your notes anyway. Which is consistent with the possible source? We think the right answer is D. So first of all, public good. Let's go through A, public good, source of market failure. Example, healthcare. Now, healthcare is a merit good rather than a public good, so that doesn't match. That's not consistent. Positive consumption externalities, education, yes, but the minimum policy, the minimum price, is not a consistent policy. If anything, you'd be subsidising education, making it free, for example, state education up to the age of 17. C, merit good. Example of market failure, petrol. No, I don't think petrol is an example of a merit good. You may well use taxation to control the demand for petrol, but it's not a merit good. Negative externalities, pollution, congestion, that kind of stuff, noise and air pollution. Example of market failure, electricity sector, yes, the energy sector is a key cause of carbon emissions. Policy to collect the failure, yes, a pollution permit, a tradable pollution permit system would be a consistent policy. The European Union emissions trading scheme would be a good example of that. So I hope you got the right answer there, which is D. 3 questions to go. Now, if some of you are on 7 out of 7, you must be getting very excited. So let's try question 8. The diagram below, diagram on the right hand side, shows the supply of and demand for milk. With the initial price of OP, the government now decides to impose a maximum price of Pmax for milk. What is the most likely outcome in the market? Have a go. I'll be back with you in a few seconds. Okay, question 8. What do we think? The government imposed a maximum price which lies above the existing equilibrium price. What did you choose for this question? The correct answer is A. The equilibrium price of OP is maintained. The reason being that for a maximum price to have any impact on the market, for a price ceiling to have any effectiveness, it has to be set below the prevailing market price, not above. Here's a revision diagram for you. To have any effect on the market, the maximum price cap, price ceiling must be set below where the free market equilibrium is. Otherwise, it has no effect on the decisions of producers and consumers. We have 2 questions left. Here's question 9. A government subsidy would cause the largest fall in the price of a product if its price elasticity of demand, defined as a positive number, in other words the coefficient of price elasticity of demand, were what? So when will a subsidy cause the largest fall in price? What do we think? And the answer is A, less than 1. A subsidy has a bigger effect on price when the demand for the product is relatively inelastic, and hopefully be able to visualize a diagram showing a subsidy shifting out the supply curve, and if you have an inelastic steep demand curve, then you're going to move quite a long way down the y-axis in terms of a change in the equilibrium price. It will have relatively less effect on quantity, but a bigger effect on price. Here is our final question. Question 10. In the diagram, the government grants a subsidy to makers of loft insulation. This shifts the market supply curve from S1 to S2. And the question is, what is the total amount spent by the government on subsidies? Which area shows the total amount spent by the government on the subsidy to the makers of loft insulation? Have a go and come back to me when you're ready with the right answer. Okay, so the subsidy cuts the cost of production. Of course, the subsidy per unit is going to be either JL or KM. It's the same vertical distance. The subsidy is the opposite of a tax. The question is, what's the total amount spent by the government? Well, the price is going to go down from G to L, or from G to F, sorry. The quantity is going to go up from N to R. How much will the state spend on the subsidy? What did you choose for this question? Well, the correct answer is C, H, J, L, F. The market price is F and the quantity is R, so they're going to make the equilibrium L. You then add on the subsidy. So the producer will sell at price F, knowing they're going to get the subsidy JL on top of that. So go up to the axis F to L, up to J, and then across to H. That's how much the government will spend on the subsidy for manufacturers of loft insulation. That's the total subsidy spend. Of course, there could be a different question. What happens to the price? The price goes down from G to F. Producer sells at F, price F, but they get the subsidy on top. The vertical distance LJ or JL multiplied by the output, you get the area of subsidy. So there we go. There were 10 questions on aspects of market failure and government intervention. If you've got more than, let's say, 7 out of 10, that's pretty good. 8, 9 out of 10, very good. 10 out of 10, outstanding. Outstanding. And of course, you can always go back through this again if you want to have another go. We are running a series of these webinars. We're calling them MCQ Revision Blast. And we're probably going to do 10 or 15 of these. So if you follow these through on the YouTube channel, you're going to get 100, 150 plus questions, all off past exam papers, recent questions, for you to test your understanding on different topics. And hopefully it's kind of a fun way to do some revision with us. The other thing I want to flog and promote is our flashcards. So sometimes you'll see some of the diagrams, and our flashcards are exam specific. They follow the syllabus for AQA and economics. I think there's 3 sets for AQA and 4 sets for Edexcel. And spent a huge amount of time on them. I think they're pretty good. So well worth having a look if you want to have a great full set of full colour flashcards to help your revision. Okay, thanks for joining in on this Edge revision webinar.